Faith is the reason I am here, the reason I survived, the reason I didn't give up when everything in my life was screaming at me to quit. I can tell you from experience, when you look at your life and all you see is failure, all you see is closed doors, all you see is pain, it feels impossible to keep going. But that's exactly when faith has to step in, because faith is what turns impossible into possible. Faith is what gives you strength when you got nothing left. Faith is what whispers, try again. When the world is shouting, you're done. I didn't grow up with everything handed to me. I didn't come from wealth or privilege. I didn't have a plan B waiting in case my dream didn't work. What I had was a vision in my heart, a calling in my spirit, and a belief that God didn't create me just to struggle forever. I believed, even when I was broke, that one day things could change. And belief, that's the seed. But faith is what makes that seed grow when the soil looks dry. I can remember sleeping in my car, wondering how I was going to eat the next day. I can remember washing up in gas station bathrooms just to feel human again. I can remember calling home and saying, I'm fine, when deep down I wasn't fine at all. And you know what carried me through those nights? Not money, not connections, not luck. It was faith. Faith that my situation wasn't my destination. Faith that my current struggle wasn't my permanent story. Faith that God had more for me than what I could see in that moment. Faith is not about seeing. If you can see it and touch it, if you can explain it, that's not faith. Faith is believing when there's no evidence. Faith is waking up with no reason to believe tomorrow will be different, and still believing anyway. Faith is closing your eyes to the storm and opening your heart to the promise. And when you learn to live like that, when you learn to walk by faith and not by sight, doors start opening that you didn't even knock on. I want you to hear me when I tell you this. The impossible is just a word. It's not a fact. It's not permanent. It's not the end. Impossible is just what things look like before faith shows up. That mountain you're facing, that dream you think is too big, that pain you think you can't get past, that's where faith does its best work. Faith is not intimidated by size, by time, by odds, by statistics. Faith doesn't care what the doctor said, what the bank account said, what the critic said. Faith says, I know what it looks like, but I also know what God can do. Let me tell you something about God. He specializes in the impossible. If it's too big for him, if it's too heavy for you, it's light work for him. If it's too late for you, he's always on time. But here's the thing, he requires your faith. Because without faith, you'll never take the step. Without faith, you'll never try again. Without faith, you'll never believe that what looks like an ending is really just the beginning. Every blessing I've ever had, every breakthrough I've ever received, every door that's ever opened for me, it all started with faith. Not with knowing the plan, not with seeing the outcome, not with having all the resources lined up. It started with faith. I remember the first time I stepped on a stage to tell jokes. I didn't know if anybody was going to laugh. I didn't know if anybody would believe in me. I didn't know if I was cut out for it. But I had faith. I said, God, if you gave me this gift, then I'm going to trust you with it. And that small step of faith became the path that changed my entire life. But let me be real with you. Faith is not easy. Faith is stretched. Faith is forged in fire. There were times when I prayed and didn't see the answer. Times when I cried and it felt like nobody heard. Times when I wanted to quit because nothing was changing. But faith is not faith if it only works when life is easy. Faith is faith when you hold on even though it hurts. Faith is faith when you trust even when you don't understand. Faith is faith when you keep moving even though the path ahead is dark. I'm telling you, you cannot let go of your faith just because it looks impossible. That's when you need it most. If you're waiting for perfect conditions, you'll never move. If you're waiting for everything to line up, you'll never start. Faith means stepping out into the unknown, believing that God already prepared the ground for your feet. Faith means putting the dream in motion, even when you don't have all the answers. Faith means saying, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I know who. Some of you right now, you've been praying for a breakthrough. You've been asking God for a sign. You've been waiting for something to shift. And I came to tell you, your faith is the key. Stop saying it's impossible. Stop letting doubt talk louder than your belief. Stop letting fear write your story. Faith is what takes you from where you are to where you're meant to be. Faith is what moves mountains. Faith is what splits seas. Faith is what brings dead dreams back to life. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is power. Faith is courage. Faith is strength. Faith is everything. And if you'll just hold on to it, protect it, nurture it, refuse to let it go no matter how hard it gets, you will see the impossible become possible in your own life. Every single one of us is going to face setbacks. Nobody gets through life untouched by disappointment, by failure, by pain. You can't escape it, you can't avoid it, and you can't pray it away. Life will knock you down, doors will slam shut in your face, people will walk away, and dreams will sometimes fall apart. But here's what I've learned, and I promise you this is the truth: every single setback you face is not the end of the story. It's a setup for something greater that God has in store for you. See, when I was struggling in my early years, I thought the setbacks meant I wasn't good enough. I thought rejection was proof that my dream wasn't meant for me. I thought homelessness was God forget about me. But what I didn't realize back then was that the setback wasn't a punishment, it was preparation. The pain wasn't designed to destroy me, it was designed to position me. And if you can shift your perspective and see your setbacks through the lens of faith, you'll start to realize that they're not obstacles. They're setups for something you couldn't have imagined. I can remember losing jobs, being told no over and over again, being laughed at when I said I wanted to be on TV. I remember those nights of wondering, Lord, why would you put this dream in me if it's never going to happen? Why would you give me this passion if all I ever feel is rejection? And the answer didn't come right away. Sometimes God's silence feels like absence, but it's not. He was setting things up. He was shaping me, teaching me, building me for the opportunity that was coming down the line. If you've ever been set back, I want you to know it's not wasted. That heartbreak, that failure, that loss, it hurts, I know it does. But it's not wasted, it's part of the setup. See, if you only ever won, if you only ever succeeded, if you only ever got yes after yes, you would never build the strength, the character, the resilience you need for the life God is preparing you for. Sometimes the very thing you think is holding you back is actually pushing you into your destiny. Think about it, you can't have a comeback without a setback. You can't experience resurrection without death. You can't know what it feels like to rise if you've never been knocked down. And that's why you shouldn't despise your setbacks. They're painful, they're uncomfortable, but they're necessary. Every setback I've had has taught me something that success never could. It taught me how to keep going when I felt like quitting. It taught me how to trust when I couldn't see. It taught me how to believe when I didn't have proof. I'm standing here today not because everything went right, but because I refused to quit when everything went wrong. And that's the key. You cannot allow a setback to convince you it's over. You cannot allow rejection to make you believe you're unworthy. You cannot allow failure to convince you that God changed his mind about you. He hasn't. His plan for you is still intact. His promise over your life hasn't expired. His setup is still in motion. Sometimes God allows the setback because he knows you're aiming too low. Sometimes he closes a door because he doesn't want you stuck in a room that's beneath your purpose. Sometimes he lets people walk away because their season in your life is over. And I know it's painful, I know it feels unfair, but if you trust him, you'll see that it's not rejection. It's redirection. It's not the end, it's a setup. I want you to think about the times you've been disappointed. Think about the jobs you didn't get, the relationships that fell apart, the opportunities that slipped away. At the time, it broke your heart. At the time, you thought you lost everything. But now, looking back, you can see how those very losses cleared the way for something better. You can see how those setbacks pushed you into growth, pushed you into faith, pushed you closer to God. That's not coincidence. That's the setup. And don't miss this. Sometimes the bigger the setback, the bigger the setup, the greater the pain, the greater the promise. The deeper the valley, the higher the mountain on the other side. That's why you can't quit in the middle. You can't give up when it hurts. You can't stop when it looks impossible. Because God is still writing, and the part of the story you're in right now is not the ending. It's the setup. I used to think my failures disqualified me. I used to think my mistakes canceled my future. But I learned that God is a God of redemption. He'll take what was meant for evil and use it for good. He'll take your scars and turn them into stories that inspire others. He'll take your weakness and turn it into strength. That's the kind of God we serve, and that's why every single setback is still a part of his plan. So the next time life knocks you down, the next time someone tells you no, the next time you feel like giving up, I want you to stop and remind yourself this is not the end. This is not the final chapter. This is a setup. And if you keep the faith, if you keep moving forward, if you refuse to quit, you'll look back one day and realize that everything you went through was leading you right to where you were supposed to be. I grew up hearing people say, pray about it. Anytime you had a problem, anytime you were in trouble, anytime you didn't know what to do, the answer was always, just pray. And don't get me wrong, prayer is powerful, prayer is necessary, prayer changes things. But let me tell you something I've learned in my life: prayer without belief is empty. You can get down on your knees every night. You can call out God's name every morning. You can repeat every scripture you know. But if you don't actually believe in what you're praying for, you're just saying words. It's faith that gives prayer its power. See, some folks treat prayer like a wish list. They pray because it sounds good, because that's what they're supposed to do. But deep down, they don't believe it's going to happen. They pray for healing but expect to stay sick. They pray for opportunities but keep expecting doors to stay closed. They pray for peace but walk around clinging to stress. And that's not real prayer. That's empty prayer. Real prayer is fueled by belief. It's saying, Lord, I trust you. Lord, I believe you can do this, even if I can't see how. When I was broke and sleeping in my car, I prayed a lot. I prayed for a way out. I prayed for opportunities. I prayed for God to do something. But I also believed. I believed deep down that He was listening. I believed that He wasn't going to leave me where I was. I believed that even though I was broke, I wasn't broken. And because I believed, my prayers weren't just words. They were seeds planted in faith. And over time, those seeds grew into doors opening, opportunities showing up, and a life I couldn't have dreamed of on my own. Prayer works when you attach faith to it. Think of it like electricity. You can flip a switch all day long, but if there's no power connected to it, the light's not coming on. Prayer is the switch. Faith is the power. You need both to light up your life. Too many people are flipping switches with no power, saying words with no belief, and then they wonder why nothing changes. You've got to connect your prayer to your faith if you want to see miracles. I've seen people pray for years and stay stuck, not because God wasn't listening, but because they never believed. They let doubt cancel out their words. They let fear water down their faith. They let what they saw around them convince them it wasn't possible. But here's the truth. Belief is the soil where miracles grow. Without belief, prayer is just noise. With belief, prayer becomes power. When you pray, you have to pray like it's already done. That's what faith is. You have to thank God before you see it. You have to believe in your heart that the answer is already on the way, even if the package hasn't arrived yet. You have to carry yourself like the door is already open, like the healing is already yours, like the breakthrough is already here. That's the kind of prayer that moves heaven, because it's built on trust, not fear. And don't miss this. Belief doesn't mean you won't have doubts creep in. Belief doesn't mean you'll never get discouraged. It means you choose faith anyway. It means you choose to trust even when the evidence isn't there. It means you hold on to what God promised you even when it looks like the opposite is happening. That's what makes belief powerful. It's a choice. So many times in my life I've prayed prayers that seemed impossible. I prayed to be on television when I didn't have a dime to my name. I prayed for opportunities when everybody told me no. I prayed for strength when I felt like I couldn't go on. And the only reason those prayers got answered is because I believed. I believed that God was bigger than my situation. I believed that He was faithful even when I wasn't. I believed that if He put a dream in my heart, He would make a way for it to come true. And every miracle I've ever experienced came because prayer and belief worked together. Some of you right now are praying for something, but you don't really believe it can happen. And I want to challenge you, shift your mindset. Stop praying small, doubtful prayers. Stop asking like you don't expect to receive. Start praying bold, faith-filled prayers. Start asking like you know who your Father is. Start believing like you know His word doesn't return void. If you do that, you'll see miracles in your life that will blow your mind. Think about it. God created the universe with words. He spoke and it was. And you are created in His image. When you speak in prayer, when you align your words with belief, you're tapping into that same creative power. You're speaking life into dead places. You're speaking hope into hopeless situations. You're speaking miracles into existence. That's why you can't just pray out of habit. You've got to pray out of faith. I can't tell you how many times I prayed for something that didn't happen when I wanted it to, but it happened right on time. And that's the other side of belief. You've got to trust God's timing. Prayer with faith says, even if it doesn't come today, I believe it's coming. Prayer with faith says, even if I don't see it yet, I trust it's on the way. That's how you keep going. That's how you stay strong in the waiting. Because you know your prayer wasn't wasted, your words weren't ignored, your faith wasn't in vain. So when you pray tonight, don't just go through the motions. Don't just say the words you've always said. Don't just bow your head and repeat something else. Pray with belief. Pray with faith. Pray like you know that miracle is already yours. And when you do, you'll find out what I've found out, that prayer without belief is empty, but belief with faith creates miracles that change your life forever.